Welcome to the Food on Demand podcast, where we dish up insights on the future of restaurants relating to off-premises operations and the overall digital dining experience, and explore how this dynamic industry is reshaping the way we eat. I'm Bernadette Heyer, Managing Editor.
And I am Adam Wahlberg, Associate Editor. Be sure to check out our website for an array of content and subscribe to our weekly newsletter.
Yes, please do, as always. Now, before I dive into our guest interview today with Anna Tauzin, she is the CMO of Molak Corporation. It's time for our quick bite segment again, where we share what's been sizzling in our kitchens lately. And I'm going to kick this one off today with an outlook on the new year, 2025, and some predictions to come. I recently wrote about this and found some key trends, speaking to some analysts. And one, for example, is there will be more than likely a continued trend of closures, unfortunately, in the restaurant industry space, QSR particularly, as we've seen with Wendy's, which just closed 140 stores, and Denny's shut down 150 underperforming ones. And so this kind of points to a tough year ahead for the industry, especially with economic challenges and closing some underperforming stores to reallocate resources to ones that are doing better. So we'll see some more of that, unfortunately. But on the flip side, there is a rise in smaller, more digital forward restaurant models, as we've talked before on this podcast. As more consumers use drive-throughs, delivery, takeout, brands are moving away from larger dining rooms. And we are seeing more pickup lanes, dedicated pickup areas, pickup lockers. And with that comes kiosks, of course. We'll probably see a more rise in digital forward strategies like kiosks for ordering. Delivery demand is predicted to remain strong. Despite rising prices across the board, consumers continue to be willing to pay more for the convenience of delivery. So I don't see that changing. Another trend, of course, is the growth of automation, especially in kitchens. For example, operating those mundane tasks in the back of house, like Chipotle's avocado, which automatically cuts cores and peels those avocados. So we'll see some more of that. Of course, AI is going to continue to play a big role. However, I see more in 2025 of it with demand forecasting, whether that's knowing, how much to schedule for labor or what to order in your supply chain to prevent waste. I can see AI being more relevant there, as well as it helping with marketing and personalized promotions, which we will hear in today's interview about marketing. That's where I see AI mainly in 2025. Of course, there's robotics and things like that, but I do see more kind of the invisible AI helping with those operations. So those are just a few trends that we'll keep an eye on. Adam, I know that you looked at the grocery store outlook. So, what have you found?
And thank you. It's so fascinating to hear about all the trends and innovations you found in your reporting. I love that piece you had. Yeah, I recently looked at this report from the consulting firm Deloitte that kind of points toward increased competition between grocery stores and QSRs going forward.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the things they found is that for like value items, like where in the past maybe if you want a burrito, you maybe just have rice and beans in your house and you just go down the street and get it. Now, with prices that have come down in the last year for some of these QSR items, people just order a burrito. And so that's fascinating. And another big takeaway from the Deloitte study is convenience. That's really the ball game. I mean, if it's just so easy to order something from your favorite QSR, why wouldn't you? And I think grocery stores are starting to become more and more mindful of that dynamic. In fact, in the survey that they conducted, they showed that 23% of consumers said they value convenience more than anything, more than price, more than taste,
Yeah.
which I found shocking. So
Hmm.
convenience is really just so important, and if you can get something delivered from a grocery store as well as a QSR or vice versa, that's where the battle is going to be fought. Also, it means competition is going to get tougher for grocers as they adapt to the omnichannel environment. More consumers are choosing to order groceries online. That's been going on for a while, and that's going to continue. and it's going to make in-store shopping less popular. While pickup services, where staff pack orders for curbside delivery at grocery stores, that's going to likely become more and more popular. Convenience, right? Everything
Yep.
is all about convenience. Plus, consumers will continue to use third-party services for delivery, such as Instacart or DoorDash. DoorDash has recently been talking more and more about their grocery store offerings. So all this is all getting kind of thrown in the mix into this battle royal of competition between grocery stores, QSRs. I'll even throw convenience stores in the mix. They're all going to be competing, and I think they're going to be competing mostly for value conscious consumers. And if you can get something to consumers in an easy, convenient way, well, they're likely is going to be the champion in this competition. They're going to have their hand raised. So we're going to keep watching. It's going to be a fascinating year. So back to you, Bernadette.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Adam. And now it's time for our guest interview. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right, it is time for our guest interview with Anna Tauzin. She is with Molak Corporation and has a wealth of knowledge and background in the restaurant, technology, and marketing sector. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Happy to be here, Bernadette. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. So before we get into a fun conversation about restaurant marketing and all that jazz, I would love to learn more about you. Can you give me a bit of background about, your past that led you into your current role today?
It is kind of a wild one, but I'll try to keep it very short. So essentially, I started in restaurants when I was younger. I worked front of house, I worked back of house, I was a hostess, I was a waitress at Denny's on the graveyard shift for a while. It was a lot of fun. And then I transitioned. I got my master's degree in journalism up in DC from American University and moved into journalism. And I was working in the journalism world for a little while, which was fantastic. And then I moved over to the National Restaurant Association. And that is where the wheels started turning on like my passion for restaurants and technology, advocacy and marketing, and kind of pulled all these things together. So I headed up innovation projects over there for National Restaurant Association for a little while, moved down to the Texas Restaurant Association where I'm from originally. So it was really nice to come home and did revenue and innovation for them for some time. Then I moved over to the tech sector. So I was working for Chow Now, which is a great online ordering provider, and then fully moved into restaurants. And so started consulting for restaurants on the marketing side, took a role with Big Chicken as their head of marketing for a little while, just over a year, and then found myself here as the chief marketing officer for Molak Corporation.
Yeah, that's fantastic and quite the background, the right person to speak to for food on demand. Absolutely. So tell me a bit about your current role and what you oversee and what the corporation's all about.
It's kind of amazing because if you say Molak Corporation, most people don't know what that is, but then if you
Mhm.
start naming the operations, people recognize it. So we own and operate a variety of retail, restaurant, entertainment in Central Texas. So we have several restaurants, including down on Grayson and Josephine Street in San Antonio. We operate the Gristmill River Restaurant here in Greene, Texas, which is where I am. We have Mosey's, which is like the best little sports bar ever. We have Cantina del Rio, which is a Tex-Mex concept. We have the Grapevine, which is a wine bar. Let's see, we have Cotton Eye Joe's, which is our retail store, brick and mortar store. And then we also have e-commerce. And then, of course, we own and operate Green Hall, which is the oldest dance hall in Texas.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing. And so, quite different than your last role with Big Chicken, a QSR growing brand, and now seems a mix between tourist and local facilities. So, with that wealth of knowledge, can you kind of tell me a bit about marketing today in this omni-channel environment? That's a loaded question,
Mm.
but any touch points to start there?
Sure. So, I mean, when you say omni-channel, obviously it means everything, right? And you really have to think about the consumer in a holistic sense, all the different touch points from top of funnel to the bottom of the funnel and how they discover you. What's really interesting is here in Green, we have a huge tourist group coming through
Yeah.
throughout the year, right? There's really only a couple slow seasons for us and they're really brief. Right now is one of them. Early January, that's time when we don't see a lot of traffic. But people might come into Green, just as an example. They may have purchased tickets to a Green Hall show, right? Say they're seeing someone at night. Well, where are they going to eat before they go to, the show? where are they going to buy souvenirs and gifts for people back home? And so there's all these different interesting touch points for us to gather. We are still in sort of the beginning stages of bringing all of that data together so we can understand our consumer better. But we have been able to move forward on a few different things. So we do have Klaviyo, which is our email and SMS platform. And then we use Waitlist.me for waitlist technology, as well as our reservation technology. And so we're starting to gather information that way. For a little while, we were using Placer to get data, on the consumers and some of their habits. I found that to be a little bit of a stretch. I think some of their data, once you realize like how much they're kind of using some very small data to make predictions on things, you realize it's not quite the right information. And so we actually use Chase, who is our payment processor, for a lot of our data on our guests and where they're going and where they go in between different restaurants and retail, which is really helpful. I will say that like between independent restaurant marketing and chain restaurant marketing, there is a pretty
Yeah.
big difference. Obviously, the big one is budget, right? When you're
Hmm.
working for a chain restaurant, you typically have more budget available to you. So for independents, we rely a lot on organic traffic. So I have my notes here. I went and took a lot of notes on what we're doing just to write
I
it all
love
down.
it.
And it was really helpful, honestly, because I was like, we just kind of know what to do. But then when you write
Hmm.
it down, you're like, all right, we're doing all right. So
Yeah.
we do rely a lot on our community, right? We do a lot of community focused events, and I can talk more about that later because we have some really good examples. But we do spend quite a bit actually on advertising as well. So we do a lot of ads through Google and Meta for that discoverability, right? Obviously, with a lot of tourist traffic, you have to catch them when they're in town. And then for the local traffic, we have different keywords that we pay for as well to try and get some of those locals in store. And then we also do a lot of print advertising too, which I'm experimenting with a little bit this year to see like where should we put the most pressure to see. We have some interesting prints like newspapers that actually hit every single inbox or every single mailbox in the community, which is really great. There's
Yeah.
also magazines in the area, and billboards are a big one. A lot of our properties are located along the I-35 corridor. And so using billboards for advertising has been fairly effective, much to my chagrin, because I was like, billboards, really? What year is it?
Yeah.
But out of home advertising, like it actually it does a good job. So thank you to those Lamar people out there. Um, I'd say that the branding wise, when we look at, independent restaurant marketing, branding wise, it is very much focused on the restaurant's individual character, right? So
Sure.
instead of having a story to tell with 30, 50, 75 locations, we have these individual stores that have their own personalities and their own way of doing things. And so that's been really interesting, changing up my way of doing it before when I was with the chain of Big Chicken and moving over here. The biggest difference has been, frankly, there's more to do because we have all these different properties, all these different independent concepts. Let's see here, what else we do. Customer data, as I mentioned, is challenging for us right now. And I will say that the best use case for personalization comes from people recognizing regulars. Like that's
Sure.
that's really what it comes down to. But
Yeah.
we also have the ability to do some really personal touches. We do keep stationery at some of our biggest stores so that we can write like happy anniversary and happy birthday cards, physically write them instead of just sending it in an email. And that's really special. You can't really get any more authentic than that. And it's pretty special.
Yeah, I love that explanation and diving into, those differences between marketing for a QSR brand across the board
Mm-hmm.
and then the individual personal touch. And interesting to hear that, still some of the paper and physical advertising is still working well for local brands.
It surprised me too, Brendan.
Yeah.
Honestly, I am a digital marketer at heart, and so moving away from my precious digital stuff where I can track everything, and then putting a magazine ad, and then I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, but sometimes it works. We have done some grassroots stuff too. One of my dear friends and mentor for years, Sam Stanovich, he always
Mhm.
told me he was like, grassroots is really where it's at. So we literally printed up for one of our restaurant concepts, we printed up some flyers and it was free queso when you order an entree, in store only, not to go. And we drove it around and dropped it off at different apartment communities. I was literally on the phone to apartment communities and saying, like, hey, can we bring this by? Yes, Anna, that would be great. We'd love to hear from you guys, like
Yeah.
literally. And it's just the sweetest thing. And we're seeing redemption. It's working. It's driving traffic. Like looking at that store's sales, like we're doing all right even during the slow period. And we timed it specifically to happen during the slow period of early January to about mid-February.
Right, right. Yeah, that makes sense. You talked a bit or quite a bit about customer data, and that's, the avenue that you're still working to improve on.
Mhm.
But as you know from all your past roles across the board, that's such a high focus right now for brands. We need to get customer data. How do we leverage it? What do we do? Any other comment on that? You mentioned the difference between local and big, but any overall
Mhm.
advice that restaurants or brands should look at when looking to leverage customer data?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of twofold. Don't be afraid to experiment a little bit with some of your LTOs and new flavor offerings, and then
Mm,
watch that data. See what the performance is. Do you see an increase in people ordering it? What does that look like compared to some of your other menu items? I spend a lot of time looking at menu data and sales
yeah.
data, which is really, really helpful, honestly, to understand kind of what our consumers are looking for. And then surprisingly, our payment processor has a lot of really relevant data, and you know that it's good because it's all based on, credit card processing, which the majority of our transactions across the board are credit card. So it's really been very helpful to dig into that.
Yeah, yeah, that's super helpful for anyone listening, finding different ways they can leverage and obviously tapping outside resources if needed, if you don't have that ability in-house to track
Right,
that data. So,
right.
yeah. So going into a bit more about the community side of things, you mentioned you're doing some fun community engagement marketing tactics. I'd love to hear about those.
Yes. Okay. So one of our restaurants in San Antonio, down on Grayson, is fantastic. It's located near the Pearl District in San Antonio. There's a lot of competition down there, as you can imagine, if you've been to San Antonio or anyone listening has been. So we have been hosting these really fun events, one of which I'll tell you about. We did, okay, so down on Grayson, the acronym is DOG, dog. And it just so happens that our patio is very dog friendly. It's a big patio, beautiful oak
Love
trees.
that.
So it's shaded and cool during the summer, and it's heated with these really cute little fires during the winter. And so it's very dog friendly. And we hosted an event called Santa Paws, where we hired a Santa to come and take photos with guest dogs that showed up.
Oh, cute.
It was so cute. Oh my God, Brenda, it was so cute. And we also partnered with SNPSA, which is an organization in San Antonio that does dog adoptions. And several dogs were adopted that day too. They had puppies, they had kitties,
Oh,
they had dogs. And it was just like such a wonderful environment, not just for the volunteers that were there and for my team, but also the people working. The director of operations down there, Taryn, she was telling me that the environment and the feeling that people had on staff that day because they were doing something for the community felt so good. And it can be like a boost, not just for your outside guests, but also your inside people too, which is really important.
yeah, no, I love that. I would have definitely attended if I was in the area. Dog lover over here. So that's really special and I think important for smaller local restaurant brands to tap into. That's a unique funnel that they can have that not these bigger brands can do.
It was really fun. And then for here in Green, anyone who's ever visited Green, no, it's very picturesque. It's like working in an old West town, kind of. It's
Sure.
kind of hard to describe. It's right out my window, so I'm trying to tell you about it. But I work in a building that's more than 100 years old. There's a ton of history here. And for the first time ever, we decided to invest in working with a company to build an ice rink. And an
Oh,
ice rink, an
wow.
outdoor ice rink in Texas is a huge deal. And we were, watching those temperatures every single day. And it was a huge hit. And we knew that because of the traffic that it was going to be bringing in, that we can invest more in our town's lighting and decoration for the holidays too. So it was really wonderful. We were able to have a lot more lights, a lot more garland, wreaths everywhere. It felt like walking in like a little hallmarked village. And then it did great for our businesses too. So our wine bar, the Grapevine, that's over this way. That's why I'm pointing that way. Was right across the street from the ice rink. And so when the ice rink was busy, Grapevine was busy, all the other restaurants benefited as well, and the other stores that we don't, own or operate. So it was really great and just felt like a really special thing for the community. It wasn't without its hiccups, for the first year we had some little things pop up, but overall it was amazing and we look forward to doing it next year.
That sounds great. And I love hearing about the events that different brands do for the marketing side and attracting guests
Yeah.
away from in-person events and kind of onto the social media side of things.
Mm.
Can you kind of give me an overview of the importance of that and how that's changed over the past years in your marketing roles and what you guys are doing on your end?
For sure, for sure. There's been a shift since I've come aboard here to focus more on people because that's what people want to see. We have to remember all the time that we are a restaurant, retail, entertainment business. we are
Mhm.
not a media company. And so we have to kind of strike that right balance. I think some restaurants, big chain restaurants, you know, Chili's, I think, does an amazing job. There's a whole bunch of them out there that do a really good job of being more of a media company and providing entertainment through their social media.
Sure.
We don't have that kind of time. We don't have that kind of budget. So what we can do though is take advantage of different social media organic trends that we're seeing and emulate some of that. So if you go and look at any of our different Instagram channels, you can see some reels done by the newest member of our team. Her name's Claire. We actually hired her from one of the operations to come and do it. She's doing a great job. And so we're doing a lot more of that while also remembering that we are Texas hospitality. Like we are a brand that serves in this way. So we're not about entertaining you. We're more about giving you information and creating awareness while also trying to stay relevant. So it's an interesting line to walk, but I think it's been working. Now on as far as getting engagement on social, we're constantly coming up with stuff. We run different contests throughout the year. We do sweepstakes. We repost people's content frequently. I mean, a lot of people post, and tag us whenever they post on social media. And so we're really good about reposting that. And that's been really helpful. Engaging with people's content. I mean, it takes a lot of time, honestly, especially because we have essentially nine different distinct brands, and each of them has a very different voice. And so you have to understand how you respond to someone's comment from Green Hall versus someone's comment from Mosey's. It's just going to be very different. And so it's a challenge, but it's really fun. We're having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, and I appreciate you diving into that. And this question is more about your past role or maybe just an overview, but
Sure.
knowing your past role with Big Chicken and the relation with their founder Shaquille O'Neal, what do you see as far as influencer or, celebrity involvement when it comes to brands and marketing? Any take on that, whether that's advice or
Sure.
you found?
Yeah, so I'll take the influencer route first. So we do work with influencers throughout the year here, and we also
Oh, great.
did at Big Chicken too. And I would say that being very clear about what your expectations are with the influencer is very, very important. And you know what? Like people come to, like, for example, people that might cover a restaurant down in San Antonio. We're really close to the Pearl District, but we're not part of the Pearl. And we have to make that very clear. Like when you're shooting different angles of your video, you have to pay
Mm,
attention to like where our property line is and where the other property line is, and just be very cautious about that. And so I would say make it very clear to the influencer exactly what your expectations are and where they have creative freedom. Any influencer I've ever talked to, they've just want to know this information. And it's really important for you to be prepared and not just let them go and do whatever they want, because you might be disappointed with the results. And that's not on them. That's on you as the brand for not communicating your expectations. Now, when it comes to celebrity, I mean, someone like Shaquille O'Neal, he's amazing, right? He's such a good guy. He's the real deal, right? And you have to be very cautious when you are representing a celebrity backed brand. There can be no mistakes, right? You cannot have a mistake because it reflects poorly on this internationally known person. And so
right.
you have to be very cautious. And that could take a little bit more time, right, in developing some of the content that you're producing. So that's something to be aware of. But interesting enough, like sometimes the celebrity content doesn't perform as well as some of the organic content, which might
Sure.
surprise you a little bit. But we did a study and looked at a lot of other brands too that are celebrity backed. And, some of the content that was posted by other celebrities just didn't perform as well as some of their organic content or some of the user generated content because people like to see themselves in that. That said, Shaquille is a bit of a magic bullet, and
Right.
he's incredibly special. And it, leaving a brand like that is celebrity backed, that took a lot of soul searching to make sure I wanted to do that,
Sure.
but it was ultimately the right decision.
Yeah, well, I like to ask that with brands that are working with influencers, celebrities, because it is a different game, and you need to have
Mhm.
these different strategies in place for that. Okay, kind of moving on to a generalized question, which I know that you keep up with given your background with tech trends you're seeing in the industry today, and any predictions to come, whether that what you're
Sure.
working on or what you're seeing industry wide. I'd love to hear your take on that.
I everyone asks this question, right? Predictions of
Right.
what's to come. And I think just more of it is to come, right? So more use cases in different restaurants. I want to see more kiosks. Shout out to Brandon at Bite, amazing company. Um, I want to see more kiosks and QSRs and fast casuals. I think that's going to make a big difference for a lot of people. I can see that expanding. I really think that more employee-centric tools, training tools like Opus or communication tools like Seven Shifts, that really just needs to be the standard for people.
Right.
Talking to people that work in the industry that are on the front lines, like that's what they want. And so giving them anything else is really just sort of substandard at this point. I would love to see people focus more on SEO for voice search queries, especially because at home, pizza near me when you're in the car and you're interacting with Siri, like that's really important too. So I think more people need to focus on that. As we see more competition in the space, awareness is a big issue. And so those are some basic things like SEO that they need to stay focused on. They can't lose focus on that. More contactless payments. Let people
Mm-hmm.
pay and leave. I mean, I feel like I've been saying this for years. I have been saying this for years. Let people pay and leave and just remove that pain point when it comes to time for payment.
Yeah.
That's a big one. And then on the kitchen side, I really love kitchen technology too. If you don't have a KDS, like I'm sorry, which means I'm sorry for myself because we don't have any of that. But I really think that smart inventory management and waste management is going to remain a big
Yeah.
focus in 2025 and beyond. And then on the entertainment and retail side, because we have these other businesses too, personalization tools is a big one. Making sure that you're using all the different pixels so that your ads are tracking and following people throughout their journey is really important because, they may have clicked on going to see Pat Green in concert at Green Hall, and I want that ad to follow them everywhere. So
Yeah.
these are really
Hmm.
basic things that have been around for a while. I just want to see more of it. I don't think there was anything else on my list, but yeah, more
Yeah.
technology is never a bad thing, but never at the expense of hospitality.
Right, right. And that was my follow-up, which was, how do you find that right balance? And that really depends on the business and what you're working with. But any, take on that.
I think finding the right balance between lots of digital tools and hospitality comes down to training. So,
Mm.
is your team comfortable using the tech tool in a way that does not interfere with the guest experience?
Right.
Handhelds at the table are a great example of this. Toast revolutionized the business by bringing handhelds more to the forefront and making them affordable for restaurants. But the last thing people want to see is a server with their head down punching into a device instead of interacting with the table. So that just takes training and repetition. And honestly, I think a lot of it is going to come down to that. As far as like the awareness side and discoverability, you can never have too much technology. I sit on the board of Marquee as
Hmm.
well. And I think that discoverability and review response is so important for restaurants, especially independent restaurants. And if you can use a tool like Marquee or anyone else out there, that's just going to help your marketing team out dramatically.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. I'm actually working on a story right now about reviews and the different companies that can aid you in that, and Marquee one of them. So yeah, very important, especially for independents, to keep their reputation up and be discoverable.
Exactly, exactly. But I also think that it's a place where you can show your personality too. So,
Great.
using your standard response is important, because everyone needs a response, but I want people to have a little more fun with it. And that's one thing I'm going to be encouraging my team to do in 2025 is like, and let's have a little bit more fun with these.
Right. So essentially, not sounding so, robotic, but more a human touch, real responses type thing.
Exactly. Well, and some of the AI tools that exist with Marquee and some others too are getting really good, right? Where they can actually look at your brand or you tell the AI tool about your brand, and then the responses that they come up with for you are fantastic. So some of them need a little bit of editing, but it's good, looking really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Anna. Before I get to the end, where I just have a few fun questions to ask you outside of work, any of these topics we haven't touched on you'd like to speak more to, whether that's marketing or I know that we kind of dove into a few topics we were thinking of hitting, but I feel like you covered a lot of things really well.
Sure. I just want to say one more thing regarding technology and the human touch. We do not have online ordering turned on yet, but we are working on it.
Interesting.
That is our plan to do that for 2025. And we're taking our time with it because we want to make sure we get it right. We are not interested in engaging with third-party delivery, so it's going to be all first party delivery and then using, some of the other services to actually handle the physical delivery part. And so we're taking our time looking at packaging. I wish there was better packaging out there so badly. We want to make sure that the brand experience is carried over into online ordering and delivery. And so we're just being slow and very deliberate about it. And I really encourage other restaurants to do the same. Really take a look at that experience and see where you can make improvements where possible.
Yeah, thank you for touching on delivery. It's so important here at Food on Demand. So you mentioned first party, you're not going to be leveraging third party. Is that in-house drivers or is that, contracting out too?
No, we'll contract out to some of the other existing platforms for the
Sure.
delivery itself, but as far as handling the orders, that's going to go through us, first party.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, any other advice on that when restaurants are looking to leverage their first party ordering? Obviously that means having more people come right to your website directly, order through you directly, but that can be difficult for some brands to navigate.
It's almost impossible for some brands. I mean, credit to DoorDash and Uber Eats, they have created consumers that are habitual orders through the platforms because they get a better experience in a lot of ways. And I think that for a lot of online ordering companies that go, for first party online ordering companies for restaurants, it can be really hard to keep up with the amazing technology tools that Uber and DoorDash have. But I really encourage people to spend a lot more time thinking about first party. Once you allow other people to have access to your brand and your customers, you can't really rail it back in,
Right, right.
unfortunately.
Yes, and we hear that across the board. So thank you
There's
so
there's no magic to it, honestly. I
yeah,
mean, we experimented with a lot of different things at Big Chicken, doing the inserts, telling
yeah,
people, you only get your loyalty reward points by ordering direct. It didn't really make a difference. People are going to order the way they want to order. And so if they only have one way to order, that's the only
yeah.
way they can do it. So
Right, right. Yeah, people are married to their apps, so it's important to try
they
drive
are.
that traffic internally. All
They
right,
are.
awesome, Anna. Well, thank you so much for going all over marketing and restaurant tech and so forth and what's going on at Molak. Before I let you go, I'd like to move into our fun segment at the end called Did You Leave
Okay.
Room for Dessert? Where I just ask a few fun questions to get to know you better. So, if you're ready, kicking off, Anna, what is a passion project or a hobby that you've been pursuing outside of your main work?
Sure. So a couple things. I'm never
Please.
not busy, I swear. But I am a proud member of La Danse d'Escoffier, and that's women that work in restaurants, fine beverage, hospitality. It's an international organization, and I'm a member of the Austin chapter, recent past president. And we are the second largest chapter in the world, second only to New York City, which feels
Wow.
pretty good because Austin is kind of small compared to New York. But that's a really big passion for me is working with women in the industry on
Right.
their goals and what they want to work on and mentoring and receiving mentorship. And it's created a lot of really special bonds. And I really love that. I have this group of sisters that I can turn to for pretty much anything I need. And then my husband and I are actually in the process, he's in the industry too. We are in the process of purchasing a bakery. And
Oh,
so
wow.
we are busy with that. Yeah, it's a wedding cake and specialty cake bakery in Austin. I don't want to say the name because I don't want to jinx it, but we've been working on this project for a while. And so it's an existing business and we're really excited to do that too. Otherwise, I spend a lot of time with my family. I'm a native Texan and all my family is here too. And, I like to hang out with them and my friends, go on walks. I see a lot of live music and,
Good
and
place
a
to
lot
live
of
for
movies.
that.
Although, I mean, it is kind of a dream, right? Like I grew up in Wimberley, which is a really small town, really close to here too, and spent, my childhood coming to this place. And so to be working in a place that is so revered is really, really special.
I love it. That was a great answer, and I'm excited for your bakery endeavor and
Thank you.
everything else. A few more questions. With all
Yeah.
this restaurant talk, what's your, favorite cuisine or meal or your kind of your go-to, whether that's a
Oh my
place or
gosh.
cuisine?
Oh my gosh, that is such a tough question.
It is.
I think that, it sounds so cheesy, but when I was working for the National Restaurant Association, there's a plaque on the wall in the DC office that says something like, restaurants are where memories are made. And it's so true. And so a lot of times the restaurants that I love are tied to memory of why I was there and when I was there, not just
Yeah.
the food that I ate. So I would have to say that one of my favorite memorable restaurants, because every time I go there, it's just such a special experience, is Sylvain in New Orleans. It's one of the only restaurants in the French Quarter that I like to eat at. It's down a little dark alley and it's incredible. And on their secret menu, you can order a bottle of champagne and a bucket of French fries, which I think is like the perfect meal for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big one. I think in terms of like cuisine that I love pastry. I can't help it. It's so good. Chocolate croissant is like my desert island food.
Yeah.
But I actually married a chef, so
Oh,
I get spoiled
okay.
a lot. Yeah, he works for US Foods.
Yeah.
And so and his cooking is primarily French style. So I would say, you know, anything he cooks for me is pretty much amazing.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Anna. Those are just my few fun questions. We're coming up
Sure.
on our time. So is there anything else you'd like to add in general? Or other than that, I'm so happy we had the time to talk today.
I would say, you know, especially when people are out and about at different trade shows or events, you know,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to say hi to the person next to you and strike up a conversation. You know, those places and those events can feel a little intimidating if you haven't been to them before, but as someone who's run them and been to them for years, like reach out and network a little bit more because people are really friendly and they want to meet you.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that. We are ramping up for our Food on Demand conference in May in Las Vegas at the Bellagio. So I hope anyone who's listening attends. And yes, like her advice, please mingle and speak to people. There's so much valuable information unpacked at these events. So, all right. Well, thank you so much for being on the Food on Demand podcast. And I look forward to connecting again soon.
Thank you so much, Bernadette. Appreciate it.